Thank you guys for joining us for Project Art's virtual artist talk. It looks like we have a good amount of people in the Zoom room, so that's exciting. And so, this week's topic is, self-preservation and creative expression. And we have a group of wonderful artists who have given us their time. And, I think it would be great to just kind of jump right in there and have everyone kind of introduce themselves and, talk about their work. So I think first up we have Natty, who is our Detroit resident artist. So Natty, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Do you want me to just introduce myself or to start with the sharing screen and just go from there?
You can start by introducing yourself and then go from there.
Sure. So as Jess said, I'm one of the Detroit residents. Jess is also the Detroit program director, so we've been spending a lot of time via Zoom lately, which has been really nice. I am originally from Colombia. I grew up in Chile, and I've been living in the US for the past almost 3 years. I came here to study my MFA at Cranbrook Academy of Art, and I graduated last May and have been living in Detroit since. So almost a year living in Detroit, for which being part of Project Art was really amazing, because for whoever knows Detroit, it's like a really spread out city, and Cranbrook is like in the suburbs, so kind of like 45, half an hour drive from Detroit. So moving to Detroit and being able to join this community straight away was really nice. Yeah, and I really miss them.
Well, we're so happy to have you, Natty.
Okay, so I guess I now will go and share my screen and start.
Yeah.
Or should they all introduce themselves first? Sorry.
Let's go ahead and share your screen and then we'll go up from there.
Let me just, okay. Thank you everybody who's joining from the comfort of your homes. So I'm gonna share a little bit of the work I did during my time in Cranbrook. So some of my thesis work. This is not arranged chronologically though, so I kind of mix things in and out. But most of this work was made between late 2018 and early 2020. So I am interested in how the time builds up in space and in the objects that define it, in the materialization of this through a constant process of accumulation and subtraction, how things are building up and wearing away around us, how things build up and wear off because of us, because of our daily routines and of our bodies navigating the space. We're constantly taking away and leaving things behind as we live. And in this way, I believe, is how we are constantly appropriating spaces and embedding it with memories. So a lot of my works, I wanted to say, if anybody wants to ask things, please feel free to interrupt me and ask things, so I don't just ramble and start speaking really fast and nervous. So a lot of my work aims to capture these marks and these traces, because I am fascinated by the power that objects have to resurrect memories. And I also expect a lot from objects, not only from the objects that already exist, but from the objects I make or I expect to make. And this is a quote I really love that pretty much sums up what I tried to say before. So I'll just give you a minute to read it. So Sobremesa was the title of my thesis work. And sobremesa is a word in Spanish that doesn't really have translation to English or to any other language that I know of, at least not literally. And it literally means like on the table or like over the table. But it talks about the time that we spent together after eating a meal with those people that you just ate that meal on, like sitting on the table. So the time where we talk and then you have coffee or wine, and it's like this moment of relaxation, just to be there, kind of. But to me, Sobremesa was so much more than just that. To me, it was kind of like the place where home was made, and where it still is the place where things happen, kind of. And it's funny because like even now talking here or like during this quarantine time, I feel like this, my dining table has become like the center of my world. It's like where I work and where I talk to people and where I eat, and I'm just like spending so much time sitting here, but sitting here alone in a place that was, to me, mostly like a social space, like a place where you share with people you live with or you love, and you're like creating a sense of home and belonging together. What I like is that Sobremesa is like a shared pause and a moment in between something that's already happened and something that's about to happen. So for this work, I didn't realize I was really making this when I started making it. And I had been working on these spoons repeatedly over and over, making spoons. And now I realize these spoons are bodies, or like these ones are more particularly the marks that bodies have left on something. So there's like a sense of like an absent body, or like a presence through an absence. But there's also like the abstraction of a thing, because the way I make these pieces is that I cut out the shape or like the silhouette of like a spoon, for example, and then like I pressure them. So I make a spoon and then I pressure it against metal to capture its imprint, and then the one that you're looking at right now, it's made out of wax. So I build up like a wax sheet, building up layers, and then I peel them off until I have like a thin enough sheet that's thin enough to be see-through, but not to break. And then I pressure that against the metal spoons I've already made to capture that silhouette. So it's like, what I'm kind of doing is like making abstracted versions of abstracted things that have already been abstracted by my memory or like perception of that, trying to capture that kind of like sense of something that exists in between being present and being absent. So as I'm talking about like the accumulation of time and accumulation of things around us, my processes are also trying to convey this, or I use process of accumulation and subtraction. So as I was saying before, like the wax, I build it up and then I peel it off, and then I build it up onto another thing. Or like, for example, this bottle you're seeing here is like being sandblasted. So like the surface of the steel has been removed to leave like the imprint of the vessel. And from these objects, I really struggle to have like individual objects. It's hard for me to let like one piece exist in the world by itself. So I usually like make one thing and then I make another one in response to that one, and I create these compositions sort of like still lifes. So this one here is, I didn't think about this when I made the pieces, but I realized afterwards. The fact that they're all made out of wax also speaks of this like in-betweenness, because wax is again a material that's never used, at least not, especially as a metalsmith or like a jeweler. Wax is usually used as something to be melted to create something else. It's never like the end product. So to make this kind of like still life in this material that's not meant to be like the end product, it's like talks more about like this in-betweenness and this like reminder that this is about to end also. I'm thinking about like the leftovers and the marks, so like wine stains, or, oh, is that a question? No. Sorry, I saw Something popped up on my
Here,
screen.
keep going, Eddie. I can respond. Oh, we can respond after. Or I can just respond.
Okay.
Yes, we're recording the conversation. It will be available for you. Okay, go ahead now.
Sorry, I won't stop unless you tell me that. So it's like I'm trying to capture these little things that like trigger your memory. So like a stain in a tablecloth that you've had, and then it's always there, and you remember like that wine you had, and how like these memories overlap to construct new memories. So in this image, there's like a copper vessel, then the box is made out of wax, and the like tablecloth or napkins sort of things are made out of silicon. And silicon to me is like the material they use to kind of like try to peel off the layers of the things that I'm trying to capture. So with the wax, I'm making like replicas of these things that don't exist, because it's just like my perception of. With the metal, a lot of the time is like trying to capture the impression of, and wax is kind of like peeling off the layers of something else and distorting it kind of. In my process, I use a lot of like, I like to have like a go back and forth between like a more like physically engaged process and like something that's more slow and meditative almost. So I go from like the metal pieces that I have to hammer and it's more like active and I have to be really engaged, to like these pieces. So for example, the little box in the middle is all full with knots. So it's like these things we do to remind ourselves of things. So like wrapping a piece of yarn on your finger to remember something, or like knotting while you are doing something else, just like as a nervous act. And then to me, it's just like this is like a denial of like how attached of a person I am, because it's like all these knots trying to tie things together and make it work, but then like cutting them and then collecting them all and putting them in a box, but the box is made out of wax, so it's not gonna hold for very long. And that started actually for me keeping all like the little offcuts of like the pieces I was making and making boxes for those little offcuts, and then realizing that that was more relevant than the thing I was working on. And in these, there's again the knots and the attempt of taking things apart and putting them back together, sort of like to figure out the moment where when materials transform from like a material to something that goes beyond just a material and becomes an object that's meaningful. And this like overlapping is an attempt to like create this like blurry image as a like in the way that we think of things that are hard to grasp, like things that are like lingering somewhere in your memory but you can't quite point out. So I looking for my objects to exist like in that way. And this is jewelry, because I still sometimes make jewelry. And wax as a way of preserving things, protecting things. And another wax cup, a failing object. And this is, so from now on, these images are from work that's more in progress. So what I was working on either before quarantine or like my attempt to make work from home during quarantine. This is me trying to, I wanted to like make metal almost be like see-through. And that's actually how I started working with wax and with silicone, because I realized metal wasn't gonna be see-through, so I might as well change material. But I keep going back to these like these attempts of like hammering metal as far as I can, trying to make it thin and stretch it, and then sandblasting it to make it like vulnerable. And then this is a box, but the box not really holding anything. It's probably like the surface, what will in the end like carry all the traces. Because sandblasted copper becomes really like vulnerable to any kind of mark. So touch it and like immediately your finger marks will be all over, and it like oxidizes and changes over time. This has been some of the things I've been making during quarantine. Is just like, I started by like wrapping up like this. It's like a relaxing thing I was doing with wax, but then it's also like really nerve-wracking because the wax like breaks and it's like started becoming like a knot. And I think it portrays really well how I'm feeling right now sometimes. And then trying to mark time and the pass of time while being here, like a way of creating like a sort of diary with marks. And then this is completely different. I'm just jumping into a different body of work. But I just wanted to share like something not so related to like these time processes. But this is a site-specific exhibition we did back in March with other students and alum from the Cranbrook Metalsmithing department, where we took over this historic house full of like 1900s things to pair up like these really old objects. So for example, here there's like that silver Tiffany tray, and then we were pairing that up with these rusted steel pieces, just to see how they would like communicate differently once living together. And that is it.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Nettie. Let's jump into Arantxa.
Wow, it's my turn.
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. Hi, it's nice to see everyone here. Natalia, I love your work. It's beautiful. I love it's like so subtle, and you like share like the same palette everywhere, and at the same time it's like so fragile but so strong in like the concepts that you're talking about. And that last piece that you mentioned as wax as a metaphor into how we feel, I loved it.
Thank you so much.
It's so true. It's so true, you know, like wax ignites a fire, but at the same time it breaks. And I don't know, you made my mind fly. So
oh, thank you.
yeah, it was really beautiful. I took some notes there, but I'm gonna wait for the discussion. So yeah, thank you. Hi everybody, thank you for being here. I'm so excited to see some faces that I wasn't expecting, and the ones that I was expecting. Thank you for always being so supportive. So my name is Arantxa Rodriguez. I come from Mexico City, and I'm gonna show you my journey in the arts so far. So I'm gonna start with I think my website's gonna be the easiest way to start with. So I started 11 years ago creating work inspired in fractals and sacred geometry. I became obsessed with these figures. So I started creating all these drawings. They're all hand drawings, and with them I started creating all these different kinds of works, and I started signing them with a seal with the initials of my name, Arantxa Erina Rodriguez. So this was like my very, very, very early work. It's 2014. I want to show you a little bit of everything, not taking that long, because I just want to show like how I switched from like one media to like another media and what am I doing right now. So these are all the drawings that I started doing back in the day, where I didn't even know if I was going to dedicate my whole life to art. I'll share all the links with you in the chat. So if I'm going fast, it's just because we don't have all the time in the world, even if we think we do right now, but we don't. So for example, this is a photography that I did. I did a collaboration with a Mexican photographer called Beto Adame. And this is a sunset and a sunrise. And I painted this figure in the middle with some acrylic paint. did this with pen. So I'm just gonna go a little bit fast. So everything is just inspired in geometry and fractals. So this was the drawing, and then the drawing I printed over plexiglass, and then I made it big. I cut it with router. I put some lights in it. So this is all the crazy stuff I was doing before I left to New York City to study a master's in fine arts. So yeah, I'll send you the link of everything. There's also a video that I did with my brother. My brother, he's a very good musician and producer, and we made this video together. I'm just gonna put a little part. I'll share you the link to his. I'll share you the link in the chat. Sorry for showing this video in a horrible way, all cutting it, but I'll share the link in the comments so you can take your time.
Arantxa, just for your information, that if you share your video, you have to share your screen of that video as well. So otherwise we won't. Yeah, yeah, because we.
So you were not looking at anything?
Exactly. We are looking at your website. Just let you know.
Oh my God! So you're looking at this?
Exactly. I'm looking at your website. I know you click that video link, but once it pops out from another video link, you have to share that video link web page.
Whoa, that's good to know. Well, that's okay because then
Yeah,
I'll
it's
share the link
alright.
of the video.
Yeah, we
I'll
can
share the
watch
link
it
of the
later.
video so you can watch it later. So this is what I did for like my first 9 years. And then I got the opportunity to go to New York City, and the video that I'm gonna share now, it's basically my presentation. It's around 10 minutes and it wraps up like all the work that I've been doing almost until now. So let's see if I can do this right. Please let me know, CHEMIN, if I did it right. Wait a sec. So, why is not this one?
So go back and share your screen.
Share my screen. There we are. Okay, I'm gonna put stop sharing.
And then you can go to share your screen again, and a box should pop up with different windows that you have open.
See it.
Select the one that you're looking for.
Perfect.
Are you seeing my YouTube channel now? This?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good. Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna put this one, okay? There we go. Do you see it?
Yep, it looks great. Is your sound on?
Okay.
Do you know if your sound is on? Because we can't hear anything on our end.
Oh my God, really? It is on. Well, you know what? I'm gonna talk about it then. If you can't hear the sound, I'll just talk briefly about everything. But you can see the screen, right?
Yes, and you know, one thing that you can do, we can see the screen, and so maybe one thing you can do is, as the video plays, just kind of talk about, you know, what's taking place, and you know.
Okay.
Inspired certain.
I think that's
good.
That is a good idea. So let's do that. So I arrived to New York City 2 years ago. I graduated last May. So yeah, a year ago I graduated. I can't believe it. And so this is the projects that I started doing while I was in my MFA that led me to the work that I'm doing right now. So just when I arrived to New York City around the 19th of September of 2017, 17 or 18, 17. A huge earthquake hit Mexico City, and I had just arrived to New York, and I was a little bit frustrated because I was like, how am I gonna be able to help my country? Everybody was helping, the community came together, and I was in New York City not being able to really do anything but donate. So I came with this first project, inspired in a Japanese technique called kintusurokoi, that when a plate is broken, they put it together with gold in a sign of resilience to make it more valuable and make it even more beautiful, you know, because now it has a scar, it has a mark, it has history. So using the idea of kintusurokoi, I created this temporary card, because it was just when I was in New York City and I was like starting to like change all my bank accounts to like American bank accounts and doing all this shift. So my idea was like, I'm gonna start like a donating system related to a project. So I created this credit card. It's pretty big. It's like almost 40 centimeters long, and I did the resemble of kintusurokoi, and then with a square, people donated, and I created like this big blanket of all the receipts in my studio of the people who donated. So that was my first project that I did in my master's, and the money went to a Mexican community that a friend helped me out, and the money that we got because of that project, we sent it over there. If I go a little bit ahead of time, please let me know. And then my second project, I did something called the selfie project, where I took a selfie and with special paper, I created it into a temporary tattoo, and I put it on myself, and then I took another selfie, and then I took, and then that selfie, I did it again, a temporary tattoo. So it was kind of like Inception, you know, the selfie of the selfie of the selfie. And it all started because when I came to New York City, it was like a big disruption inside of myself, because my mentor at that time, she was like, you've been doing fractals all your life, that's super commercial, you're here, try to get more into the fine arts, you know, more into like not only the concepts, but like really link yourself to what you are doing, not only because it's cool, or not only because it looks pretty, or it's maybe like interestingly, like not only because it throws your attention because of how it looks, like try to do a project that it goes way more deep. So all this, like I got super broken, so I started digging into who am I as an artist, what do I want to change, what do I really want to show. So the first thing that I did was taking a leap inside myself, and that's how the selfie project started. And so I started looking very, very far back. And when I was a kid, I loved dressing up as my toys. That was something that I realized. And I was like, wow, I was kind of doing the selfie since I was very young, you know? Like I loved doing that. I don't know why. There's another one here, but I don't know if I'll make it. Yeah, well, yeah, there's me with like another doll. So yeah, I love doing that, dressing as my dolls. So then that's when like, okay, then I'm gonna dress up as myself, you know? And it also has to do with like, what are all the masks that we put in ourselves, you know? Like who do we really are? We're not the same even to, like, we think about ourselves in so many different ways, and we're not the same people for so many other people, you know? Like I'm not the same person for my mother than for my best friend, or from someone that I'm going out with, or for my teachers, you know? We're like full of this, like 1,000 different tattoos that makes us a person that we are. So who are we really, you know? So these are some of the selfies that I used to make the tattoos. And another, so and then going back again, it all started because I studied in a Mexican Catholic school, very conservative, with a lot of rules. So it was always like, you can't wear bracelets, you can't dye your hair, you can't dye your nails, like you have to be like this, you have to dress like everyone else, you know? And I was super frustrated about that. And they were all the time, yeah, like telling me how to dress, because that was a protocol, that was the uniform, that's what you had to do. But I was always like, why can't I be myself? I was always a little rebel. So when I was 14, I decided to do a tattoo, and I was like, this they can't take off me, never. So that's why the selfie project has to do with tattoos as well, because the tattoo was the first sign that I did it when I was 14 years old. The tattoo was the first sign that made me say like, this is me. you'll never take this away from me. And I mean, of course, right now I'll tell you, like, you don't need anything in the exterior to show who you are, nothing. But when I was 14 years old, I was like, this is me. So that's how like it started, all this project. And then I did this little sort of self-portrait of showing how I kind of felt growing up, you know, in Catholic school. And that's why it's a little black sheep, because I was the little black sheep, because I was kind of different from all my friends, you know. I was always like the rebel, always asking questions in Catholic class, you know. I was like, but that doesn't make sense. And it's like, I know, but like I was always arguing. I wasn't a bad girl, I had good grades, but I was all the time questioning and arguing. So I did feel a lot like black sheep. But living growing up in a very good place, I'm very grateful for how I grew up, but it was in a way, it was a golden cage, you know, because I had everything. I had a good education, but I still felt trapped in a way, you know. So that's why I did the golden cradle with the black sheep, and then my uniform of my school, like wrapped around and crushing a mirror, you know, because it was all this identity, who I am, who do I want to be? Do I want to be a rebel? I'm so tired of fighting, but then how am I going to do this if I don't fight, you know? So this is all the selfie project. I'm gonna go a little bit fast. I don't want to run out of time. So then my mentor, once again, she challenged me and she said, like, okay, you used to do a lot of patterns because you did a lot of fractals and you love patterns. So I want you to do a pattern related to that. So then after investigating and researching and thinking, how can I do now a pattern related to the selfie project that it's not exactly a tattoo? So I came up with the idea of doing my high school uniform, but with my selfie. So if you look, they're all tiny little selfies that I put together to make the uniform of my school where I grew up with. And then taking another, I'm gonna go fast in this one because it's also like another aspect. The selfie project has like all these different aspects that I can talk like hours with each one. It's like a whole thesis. Like I did a thesis for my master before doing my actual thesis. But I did these pictures because I love Japanese culture. I love a lot of aspects of that culture. I know it's a little bit of cultural appropriation. I've also digged deep into that subject, but I feel that when it's really a matter of honoring a culture and knowing that if you're gonna like cultural appropriate something, you have to like justify it, look at it, think if it's right, how are you gonna do it. So I am careful about those things. I'm Mexican, I have nothing to do with Japanese culture, but I love it, I honor it, and I think that there's a lot of things that they do amazingly and that I super admire. So I decided to go for it. So I created my own Yakuza suit. Is a suit that only men in Japanese mafia were able to do. Now, of course, as a woman, we can do it, but back in the day, only the Japanese mafia men were able to do the suits of tattoos that they wore with like shirts, so up to here, because it was a sign of power. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna do my own sign of power, do my own Yakuza, but all with my selfie. So if you look at it, literally it's all my selfie. So I did that. And then another stage of the selfie project. The selfie project is eternal. I told you, it's like a whole thesis. I walked around art fairs full of the tattoos with a sheer dress. And I walked around there with a selfie stick, literally questioning people, like, what is the self? What is the difference between self-love and narcissism? Where is that fine line of like, I love myself, I know who I am, but I also know that there's a boundary between you and me. And how I started questioning the selfie stick in there, and it was going to the subway. I started going to this as art. So she's analyzing the water pipe, she's analyzing this mark in the wall, and literally talking about all the artistic components that everything in the street has. So she analyzes trash marks, broken buildings, like everything that she finds, she analyzes saying that she represents an anonymous artist that puts this pieces. I'll have videos of everything. I'll pass you all the links because this would have been a nice little video for you to watch. She has her own Instagram. She has her own website. Like, I try to see the Lamera as she's not the way, because I want to reach what I'm doing right now. So after all this performance, all this investigating, all this crying, breaking my soul, trying to pass art school, I decided to do something completely different for my thesis project. And I started experimenting with natural dyed yarn from Mexico. And I started creating this string installation in a meditation. So each yarn installation that I do on the wall is through also a meditation, keeping the mind fixated in a verse, in a mantra. And I just like put my mind into it and keep stapling and doing. It's for me to show that I'm trying to free thinking about it. And the difference are interesting. They come in different ways. So literally that was what I did. I'll show you the, I don't know, can you see my, if I go like this, I have to share my screen again. Are you looking at my website now? You are looking at my website. I did it correctly now. Good. Okay.
No, we're looking at your YouTube channel.
Oh, you're looking at my YouTube. Okay. So I'm just about to finish now. I want to go back to wait, I'm gonna go back to my website.
You hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the sake of time, I'm going to give you like 2 more minutes and then we're going to switch the mic over to CHEMIN.
That's perfect. And actually, you know what? My screen is frozen. Oh, there we go. So I just wanted to, I'm going to share the links in the chat, but this is literally like the whole project that I did with strings, and I'll share it with you. Oh, that was not me.
Sorry.
So yeah, this was my work. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that this was a little bit long, but thank you so much. So all yours, CHEMIN. Stop sharing. Boom.
No, thank you so much for that. That's really wonderful work.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Just wanted to shout out to Natalia. Beautiful, like almost fragile wax. I almost want to touch it. It's like so beautiful. I want to use it to drink. Very beautiful. And for Arantxa, thanks for sharing. I love, you can be your beautiful self, like a beautiful black sheep, proudly being a black sheep. So love your so versatile. If you look at my works, all single-minded, not as versatile. But I enjoy looking at them. I enjoy looking at them. So I will be sharing. So I am CHEMIN Xiao. I work for the Winter Park Library in New York. And in this brief 10 minutes, I have my timer with me. So don't worry. Everybody needs to get to dinner. So so you will see this. Basically, you will see I'm a painter with watercolor and acrylic, and you will see through mediums. For instance, you will see I going through a little bit with several artist residencies, and I collect moments in life with my drawing and painting. And later on, you will see a larger format of painting with collection of memories. And I'll go about my current artwork onto the pandemic, and I'll just share with you few images while I'm teaching for different various organizations. So this is the very first one, resident and you can see basically from with performance, I'm meditating with just sitting with all the plants or nature. And this is the second residency in 2018. I went to a small peninsula right above Maine. It's called Kingsbury Garden in Canada. And you can see that in every residency, I try to just enhance a little bit, do something different. So in this residency, you can see the scenery becomes more complex. And I started making things that I saw on location and merge into my memory. So this is one of the rabbits that resides in the Kingsbury Garden. And I just so happen to know that Anne of Green Gables, the fiction, was actually written not very far from St. Andrews, the town there. So I just felt like, yeah, you are Anne of the Green Gables, so you are Anne with an E, so things like that. And a lot of my peers know me through those simple watercolor brush strokes. I sit with all the animals within New York Zoo, and just using a quick brushwork, everything's done in 5 to 10 minutes. I try to capture because they also move very quickly as well. So that goes on. The same principle applies to what I did with my drawings with ballpoint pen. So basically, since 2010, I just, whenever I go on my daily commute on New York subway, I draw a person in front of me. So you could exactly see what I was called on to that day. You see that belly guy. I don't know why he dressed like that, but he's just very comfortable with that. And all the homeless guy, they are perfect model. And she finished 3 candy bars that she was eating in the painting. So if I zoom in a little bit, so it's a series called My Journey to the West. So what I did is like there's an ancient Chinese tale. It's a Monkey King story. The story originally goes like this: a monk has to go from east to the west to get the essence of Buddha. So I kind of adopt that for myself. Like I'm the monk. I'm going from my home country, Taiwan, to New York to study. So he has to be accompanied by 3 disciples. One is the Monkey King. Another one is the pig, if you saw it right here, and the Sandman. So you can see them repeatedly happening throughout all the work I'm doing right here. So I always like to share that if you take a quick look at this picture, you'll see that on the right-hand side, it's all black. So I pretty hated New York in the beginning. Everybody could see that very clearly. A lot of homeless guys there. Just feel terrible when I see them. So it's a way for me to realize my life in a certain period of time. So this is the second one accumulated since 2015. So to quickly point out, obviously the light has become much lighter and much more positive. I think I get used to New York a little bit. Those are my roommates. Where I was later, if you remember, I try to record it in my large format painting. So this is the scale when it was displayed in New York Hall of Science. You can kind of see the scale of it. And the most recent one, the reason I point out that little girl in 2019, this is the very recent one. And you can see she grew up to become a little girl right here. And my second baby niece was born in 2019. So it's like a little story, but if you're familiar with this game, it's a musical chair game. You can still see the Monkey King, you can still see the pig and the Sandman, but they all mean different person of maybe my family, maybe my friends, and the whole idea is like it means something to me, even though it's just a musical chair game. You can interpret it as you know, but each of them might mean interesting thing. What is the question that little girl is shouting out to the musical chair game? So those are my questions to you as well. And so from those large paintings, what I try to do is like I feel like they could well become a mural for public art. So last year I started reaching out to different organizations or through commission. So this one is done for the Artside Public Art Commissioning Program with Queens Council on the Arts and the Jackson High 82nd Street Partnership. So what they want to do is use public space to maybe celebrate the immigrant community in Jackson High. There's so many diverse community there. So I use this concept very similar to my Journey to the West series, indicating we are all different here. However, we live together in this playground. So that is the first mural I did, and that's the long shot of it. So later on, the same concept I was commissioned by Asian American Federation in Flushing this time. It's on Union Street. It's a very similar concept that they wanted to reach out to the immigrant community as well. So if you see on the left-hand side, you see we all wave goodbye to our community. We all wave goodbye to our relatives at home, in my case in Taiwan. And you fly over to this right-hand side, in this case in the Union Street construction, Union Street in Flushing, and you can see different construction workers doing their job. I think that's the main goal what they want to reach out to the audience during the time. And that's the long shot of it. And moving on to finally my current work under the pandemic. So this is the very first one. And what I was thinking is that what made me feel comfortable in this crisis, and how do I center myself in my artwork. So this is the very first piece called Comfort. So I'm just thinking, when image pop up, I try to do this as my daily ritual, think about what I feel and how certain medical thing could help me feel comfortable, or just in general. And sometimes in the beginning of pandemic, you were thinking, oh, how do you feel if you are not wearing a mask, or if you are wearing a mask? So those suspicions between the community and all that. This one is called Lifeboat. And how about we thank the essential worker and just the first responder by just simply staying at home and doing our solitary exercises. How about social distancing? Just respect each other's space. And the more I do, the more I dive into my memories of different childhood memories. For instance, this one is from the famous Ghibli film, the animation film, My Neighbor Totoro. So in the film, you're supposed to use a leaf to pray for fast growing of a plant. However, I'm using it as a symbol to fast growing of the masks. And obviously referencing a lot of the old Japanese manga work I read. Sometimes it's referencing different doctor characters, or just simply as it seems, just protecting the Statue of Liberty with all my mask clothes. Or this is a currently ongoing manga in Japan, and this one, this moose-like character in the comic work, he is a doctor, so I'm praising him for his service. And this one is the most obvious, the most recent one, the Super Mario. I think it's more relatable to American friends. This one currently directly responding to the Las Vegas crisis. I hope they don't go back reopening the hotels. And finally, I'll wrap it up with my few teaching spaces in different organizations. This one I work with Sukasa program with seniors in Flushing. I teach them printmaking. I teach them embroidery and paintings, and just let them enjoy their life. It's the same thing I do with the kids in Project Art. And Queens Botanical Garden, I always enjoy working with them. It's very beautiful. You could see that my student could simply sit around the beautiful garden scenery and paint watercolor or do printmaking. And lastly, obviously, the Project Art kids. I miss them. I hope they're all well. But I miss their hugs. So thank you very much.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, there's something really, really beautiful about your work that I enjoy, and it was nice to have you kind of talk in depth about it, and what inspires you.
Sure.
And, you know, I want to thank, you know, Arantxa and Natty too for presenting. You guys did such a wonderful job. And thank you all again for joining the conversation. And, you know, just a quick note, if anybody has any questions that they want to ask, please feel free to put them in the chat box. And I will try my best to answer all of the questions. And so, you know, the topic for this conversation is, you know, self-preservation and creative expression. And, you know, one thing, I was just kind of listening to y'all talk, and a word that came up as you all presented, every single one of you used the word meditative. And, you know, I think that for a lot of creatives, the idea of meditation is kind of intrinsic to, you know, what it means to create. So I was just curious about, like, could you expand upon that? You know, like, how does the meditative process inform your work?
Do you want me to go first? How is the meditative process in our work?
Yeah, well, how does the meditative process inform your work?
Okay. This is a good question because someone in the chat, Chelsea, just asked a question that I think I'll wrap it up into that. Meditation for me, it's a practice that I do like in everyday life. It's something that it's kind of like working out, or it's something that I do as a practice. And as an artist, it's hard for me not to like mix all my private life, literally all my life, with my work. I've been always doing it like that. Sometimes a little bit more on purpose, sometimes without even doing it on purpose. I just find myself doing something that it's literally completely related to what I'm going through. So I do the practice, and that's something that is like ingrained in my life. And in my performance, Green Tara, I try to be all the time in the mindset, but I do engage in conversations with people, not pretending that I'm Green Tara, because I'm not close to being Green Tara at all, but just trying to have that mind of like non-judgment, that mind of being in the present moment, you know, just being very, very aware in where we are, because we're not like that. We're all the time thinking about 1,000 things, you know. We have like all these agendas in our mind. So when I do the Green Tara performance, I try to set in the mindset. Of course, before going out, I do this whole meditation where I'm by myself and I prepare myself for the performance. While I'm putting on the costume, I'm also preparing myself for the performance, and then I go out. So yeah, I've engaged in a few conversations with people where they ask me from like the costume or like more deeper stuff of like, so how do you feel being the Buddha? Like, what do you want to accomplish? So yeah, I do talk with people, and I engage with the crowd. And then I think meditating it's just in general like a way of a mindset of creation. As CHEMIN was saying, you can sit down and do nothing and literally just observe, or you can engage. I think it's kind of like a mind observing the mind. Mm-hmm. That's how I see it. But I want to give the microphone to Natalia or CHEMIN.
I was thinking of what you said of the mind, observing the mind, because I think like the meditative process of like like for me when I'm making like I think we use there's so many different kinds of meditation, so I don't know, but when I'm doing like that repetitive process is basically just like a time in which I allow myself to be with myself, because we don't really do that during the day or like in life. So it's like you're forcing yourself to be with yourself and with your thoughts, because you're stuck there doing that thing and you have to be with your own mind. So then it's also like what you do with that. Like, where do you go from that? Do you try to like escape that, or do you try to engage with that, or do you try to use that for your work? Mm-hmm. So it is like you are like, I mean, when you reach that point in which you are kind of like observing your own mind, it's like when it's going really well, I think. But then it's also like the part of like the exercise you do when you're like looking.
And there's also like a lot of, or in a shower even, there's a lot of spaces that I think that we are alone with ourselves, but the process of creating something and putting that consciousness that you're like, oh, I'm in this like meditation, then it changes us. Because if not, creating work would be just like taking a shower or working out. I think there is a part of like putting that consciousness into it that makes a work meditative or not meditative, no?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would definitely agree. Yeah, I mean, it was just so interesting because all of you have these like moments where, you know, the object is the result of, you know, that meditative process, right? And I think there's a certain amount of intention. It's just kind of interesting because it's like it's very intentional, but at the same time, like I think meditation allows you an opportunity to disconnect as well. So I don't know. I mean, Chemin, did you weigh in on the conversation at all?
Oh yeah, just listening. Also, yeah, I appreciate it. I feel like yeah, meditation for me is just the same. Like Arantxa mentioned, conscious. I guess there's a word, just a mindfulness that when you are creating. For me, I'm painting or drawing. I sit with anything in front of me. If I'm drawing your portrait, for instance, Jessica, right away I let go of all my thoughts. I wouldn't worry about anything other than you.
Mm-hmm.
Things that focusedness allow us to be peaceful in a way.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, because I mean, myself, I am an arts organizer, I'm a curator, and so I'm always interested in kind of understanding where the artist is coming from, you know, and what's inspiring them to continue to create. So.
Oh, Katy, te voy a poner en mute. Sorry.
Okay.
Hi, wait a sec.
Hi.
Hola, Katy. I think you have to, I think I can't do it. I think you as a hostess are able to like.
I was just,
right. There we go.
Okay, hold on, give me 2 seconds. Of course I can't figure out how to do this right now. Oh, here we go. Let's see, let's zoom on. Okay, and then I'm going to unmute. Sorry guys, give me just a second. Okay. Okay, so we should be in a better place right now. And of course I lost my train of thought. Dang it.
You were saying that as a curator and art organizer.
Sorry. Yeah. So I'm always just really interested in like, I guess like that role of the artist and like that need to creatively express themselves, but then also like, how does that need act as a form of like, well, what the topic is, like self-preservation, you know? And so like, yes, I definitely think ritual and meditation is a huge aspect of, you know, what it means to preserve oneself, especially, you know, in a time of like turmoil, right? Like we need these things. And then somebody actually just commented, for all the artists, do you recognize you are meditating? So you go into your practice knowing that you are meditating? That was a good question.
I do think that am I muted? No.
No.
For me, I mean, I think that there's some states of minds that we can find ourselves in that can make us feel as if we were meditating. You take a really nice hot shower and you come out and it's a beautiful day and you sit down and you're like, I'm meditating. Okay. For me, meditation is a very conscious act. Like, for me, meditation, it's not like, oh yes, I meditate. No, for me, it's like I meditated. Like I put a timer, or maybe I didn't put a timer, but I put my mind into that space. So it's an interesting question because I mean, meditation is so trendy right now. Sometimes I'm like, oh, meditation is so trendy, but sometimes I'm like, great, meditation is trendy because that's what we need, you know? So it's
But
that
it's
little.
been around for thousands of years, though, you know?
It's, yeah, but now it's like a trend, and then now with the COVID, I mean, I think it's better that it's happening, but I feel that there has been also like a great misinterpretation and into what is really meditating, and I do think meditation it's work. It's something that you do have to engage in it consciously, and if you happen to be in the mindset to do it better, then great. Like if I'm a little bit like a roast in the morning, I'm like, I'm not gonna meditate right now. I'm gonna wait for like maybe where my mind is a little bit more calm to like go in the meditation. It's just not something that just happens, you know. It is like kind of like priming my mind and my ambience into like sinking it. So once I sink in it, it's like, okay, I'm gonna create, or I'm not gonna create, and I'm literally like gonna do my meditation. So this is very personal for me. Meditation is a conscious act, and it's like a deliberate act.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. I think like when like we talk about like reaching that, I think for you, Arantxa, is different because you are actually using like real meditation techniques within your work. But like when I talk about like reaching that meditative like moment, to be honest, it's more like I am focused rather
Yes,
than
like zoned in.
meditating. Whereas I'm focused on what I'm doing, which sounds silly because we think we are focused on what we do through the day, but we're not really.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more like I'm more like connected with myself and thinking about every single thing that I do. But no, I don't go to work consciously meditating. I wish I could, but
maybe it could be something that you try, like just as you know, to be intentional about it.
Arantxa, my mother is Buddhist, and I like trained in Buddhism a little bit like since I was younger. So for me, it's also like it's like a task almost. Like, oh, I should, you know. So it's like very different than these other states of like, yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, it's it's a practice. At the end of the day, like if I say like I wish I could be meditating all the time, well, practice. And I do it for like half an hour every day, and not even every day. I try to, but it's a practice. It's just putting the work, you know, like setting. It's like everything, you know. You want to have abs, then you have to do like your 200 abs a day, you know, whatever. It's like it's exactly the same. You want to be in that mindset, then you want to be good at drawing, then you have to draw, you know. Like, and by the way, Chemin, your work is amazing.
Yeah,
I was
loved
actually
it.
to say,
so
like,
beautiful.
Chemin, do you have anything that you want to add, just as someone you know, working in the medium that you do? I mean, I have personally attempted to paint with watercolor. Once again, I'm not an artist, but it was very like it was a unique experience, to say the least. So, you know, I'm wondering, like, you know, how does it weigh in for you? Because I feel like Natty and Arantxa, they make well, no, I mean, Arantxa, you do everything, you know, like there's performance, there's drawing, there's writing, you know, but I guess just thinking about Chemin, you know, your work as a painter predominantly, and like a printmaker, like, because I feel like there are a lot of, you know, qualities where you know, you mentioned you have to sit and be present. But I guess I just wonder, like, what is it like with your chosen material, you know, working towards that, if that makes sense.
You mean the topics or the content for the object that I wish to paint?
Yeah.
It's just very similar. It's a choice that you made with your aesthetic. Like
Mm-hmm.
I sit with plants and animals simply because I love them. When I'm with them, I like looking at their color, I look at their shapes. I just feel I would be attracted by it. The
Mm-hmm.
same thing like Natalia mentioned, the focus. So what makes you feel focused? You wanted to do it. And as you mentioned, watercolor, you experience it. I hope you enjoy it. I always tell my students that no matter it's a Queen's Botanic Garden or it's a senior center, the first thing I tell them is that all of you can draw, can paint.
Mm.
As long as you're looking at an object that you really like and you really want to describe it. So that is the thing. You can do it too, Jessica.
I was gonna say that made me feel better.
Yeah, you can.
I think I'm gonna try again.
Yes, definitely. Please do.
So we had a question. Let me see if I can get back to it. Oh no. Okay. How do you feel like working with project art has influenced your art practice? Has working with project art influenced your art practice?
I
For
think.
instance,
Oh, sorry.
Natalia, go first. Natalia, go first.
No, you go first.
Okay. For me, the first thing I can think of is you could see from my portfolio, everything is two-dimensional. Everything is drawing and painting. But you saw when I work with the kid, I try to make them use the paper construction to do the mask. Those items that I cherish the most, those projects that made me get out of my usual practice. And I really feel that I start making my own paper construction little masks for myself as well. So those are the things that I think I cherish. And I think the project indeed helped me kind of branch out myself to do something else different and really enjoy it.
Yeah, those masks were awesome.
Thank you.
Natty, did you want to chime in?
Sure. I think to me it was more like the non-selfishness of art making, because I think like while you're in graduate school, you're so self-involved with like your art, your practice, what am I going to do? And you don't realize, but you're like a me person while you're in graduate school. And then you leave and you like meeting all these kids and like having so much fun making things again and like revisiting like the purpose and like the meaning of making art. And also appreciating so much like maybe little skills that you have that you like take for granted, and like how much you can do with like little skills. Like I don't know, like being an artist and like not knowing how to draw, for example. Like I can't draw something. So sometimes with the kids, I was like, oh my God, they want me to teach them like how to draw like super realistic. And I'm like, I can't do that. But like knowing how to like use the things you have and like reaching to results like through the eyes of a kid, it's like pretty amazing. It's like it made me like fall in love with like making again in a different way.
Mm.
Yeah, I could say something. I could say something similar to Natalia. Am I muted? No, I always check if I'm muted.
Be loud and clear.
I when I found out about project art, the first thing that popped into my head was like, this is community. It's giving back to the community, exactly because of that. Art school is so me, yourself, and I was like, this is a project that would put me out there, that would make me know about a different place where I live and be with a lot of people. And this time it's not about me, it's completely about them. So for me, the part of giving back to the community was super important, because another thing that when I took the decision of applying and where I really like hoped to get in was because, as I say, like I'm a workaholic. Like I feel that my art is super related to my life and super related to, it's not like my art and me. Like I'm like selfie project, and if I'm Buddhism, I'm gonna like literally be a Buddha. Like if I like meditation, I'm gonna do strings meditating. You know, like my art is very ingrained to the way that I live. So I was like, I want my art to have this splash of like innocence, this splash of new ways of creating, of being with a community. So I was like, I would love an experience of teaching children to influence in my life, because this is going to influence my art making and I want that influence. So this is maybe going a little bit far, like a little bit more broad, but I think I also do my life in that way. You know, I'm like, if I'm going to get into this experience and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, like, how is this going to affect my artwork, you know? So that was one of my choices when I chose Project Art. And now that I've been doing it, I see it as a super positive thing. It's amazing giving back. It's amazing putting some time of your life for someone else and seeing how that comes back, you know? I don't know if I'll ever be a mother, but I am like, oh, now I know what is to like be with kids and see that universe. And I see an activity that has to do with kids and I'm like, ooh, for my kids. And I'm like, wow, I was never like this. It's awesome to have this new perspective, you know, like another thing to put in your bag of life. So yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's for me, it's always so, it fills my heart with so much joy to like, to work with artists who like really care about the children, the community that they're spending their time with. And it's just like, thank you guys for all of the hard work that you do. I know that, you know, sometimes you don't want to work, you know what I mean? Or sometimes you just want to stay in bed, but you know, you choose to get up on Saturdays and go and you teach and you work with your kids, and like it really, really makes a huge difference. So yeah, I mean, and like even for me, like I am a program director and I don't always work directly with kids, but you know, it is really, really fulfilling to, you know, hear you all's testimonials, to go and see the projects that you all work on. Yeah, it's amazing. And so we have another question. What are your challenges as emerging artists? Are you hopeful? How will you define success? Very good question.
Natalia, it's first Natalia, CHEMIN, and then me.
Challenges, expectations from your own expectations, I think, are a big challenge. Debt is a really big challenge.
You said debt?
Debt.
Yeah,
debt.
That's a really big challenge.
Big challenge. But I think it's actually, well, besides like the art world and like everything that we kind of like already know is challenging, is like the biggest challenge is like our own expectations on what we want to do. Because I don't know, you study and you're gonna finish and like things are gonna be resolved, and like the realization of like things not being like that. Luckily I realized that like not when I graduated, but like the summer between my first and second year. And I was like, oh my God. That's hard, because I don't know why you think like you're gonna do something and someone's gonna see it and it's gonna be like, okay, that's it. And no, it's not like that. And it's fine that it's not like that, but you put a lot of expectations in your work, and then that makes you confused in the way you look at your own work and you make your work. So I think it's important to keep like a clear mindset of like who you want to be as a person and as an artist, and not get confused with like ideas of success that are like imposed by others, or like by probably more by yourself, or like who you think you should be. And how will I define success? I think just like if I can be happy, like I would try not to define it at all by like thinking about like solo shows and galleries representation and all that, but more like just if I can be happy doing what I'm doing and like having some kind of impact. I think Project Art also made me think about that, like teaching kids. I was like, oh, this makes me so much happier than like other things that I thought made me happy, like being able to share what you know. So if I could do that, make a living, pay my debt, I think that's success.
Yeah, yeah, that's very, yeah, very similar to Nati, is that when I look at this question, what are your challenges as an emerging artist? Are you hopeful? Right away, my thoughts will be, I should go drawing right now to ease those questions and doubts. But to answer it shortly, challenges, I would say, yeah, just keep yourself healthy and continue making work while you can. And are you hopeful? I am. As long as I'm able to dive into my own drawing practice daily and without worrying about if I have food tomorrow, I think that's hopeful. My definition for success, I would say the same thing as like the perspective thing, that when I have a good class with the kids and when they round out of the door and they say thank you and they feel happy that day, that is a success for me for that particular occasion. So I try to cherish that and define that as my success daily, like little steps.
Yeah, I think Natalia's answer was amazing. Most of it is our own expectations. And it's like, oh, okay, then I won't have expectations, but then going out there, so I think you do have to do the work, but always having the expectation like outside, and for me, the way that I've been measuring success in a very like super mundane and superficial way is when it's New Year's Eve, literally around like that time, I just look at my Instagram and my emails and everything, and I see what I did that year. Literally, I see what I did that year. So I'm like, this year I graduated from an MFA, which 2 years ago was like, this year I got accepted in an MFA, like this year I did this show, or this year maybe I didn't show anywhere, but I did a lot of work, so I measure my success in how much I do. And I think also success is not only about doing, because we are now a generation of doing, and if we don't do it, we don't feel that we're like productive or we're doing anything. Again, consciousness, as long as we are like, I am doing the work because I'm doing it, then that is success. If it's like I had a really, really hard month because I had a breakup or because I was feeling bad or I got sick, I did my best, just putting the expectation outside and like really knowing what you've been doing, and not only doing, but like realizing it's all about consciousness. Again, wrapping it up to meditation. That's why I love meditation, because meditation helps you reach that space where you see things that are not that clearly. Like meditation connects you to that source where you are conscious of the motivations behind the things that you do or don't do, so that is how I think also like a big success nowadays is having time. Having time is a big success, and having time is also organizing your time. So if you organize your time, that is success. I'm gonna wake up early because I'm gonna have this and this done. Or if I'm gonna wake up late, I'm gonna stay late is because. And again, it's not only about doing; it's about being conscious. Like I'm applying for my artist visa at the moment, and it's literally been a full-time job of every day being on my computer, writing like finding emails to like write my recommendation letters, and it's like a huge process. And I'm like, I want this to be finished so I can have my time of Netflix and chill. I'm gonna organize my next Netflix and chill, where I'm not gonna do art, not gonna send an email, but I'm gonna like organize it, so I think success has to do in how you manage your time as well.
Well, and based off what you just said, we just had another question come in. Is success commitment to your work, no matter what? And I think, especially with the way that you rounded out, your last answer. I mean, obviously this question isn't for me, it's for you guys, but I would say, commitment is a part of success, right?
I think I think so. Success can be defined in so many different ways. I think success can be like, because successful, because they were successful at creating. There's artists that are super successful and what they create is not meaningful at all. You know, there's artists that what they create just makes amazing amounts of money. So is that successful? You know, there's art that doesn't make any money at all, but it's super meaningful. So what is success? Like, is money success? Is having time success? Working hard and doing a lot of work success? Having a lot of shows? Like, what is, I think it's also like a very personal question, and it has to do with your own expectations as
Yeah.
well.
Well, and it's success is relative, basically, right? And you know, I think that, you know, there was a comment about you know, mentioning collectors, but then also Natty mentioned, you know, working with galleries, which I think there's a community, right? There's a kind of community that develops in the art world, or that exists in the art world, right? And I do think, I think that the galleries, the collectors, the, can you guys hear me okay? You guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I've been, if you're wondering why I've been like floating around, it's because I'm having a terrible time with my internet connection. But, you know, I guess what I would be curious to hear from you all is, you know, how does community play into, you know, your experiences as artists, and also just trying to go back to, you know, does your community help with the process, or do they help with, you know, an act of trying to preserve oneself?
I mean, of course, there's times where having a community is gonna have your back, of course, you know. But I think it has kind of to do with like self-care. You know, you're like in this ambience with this people, going to this place, giving back, and it's kind of like a relationship. You know, it's not really about like I do for you and I give you. It's kind of like just this perfect cycle of like sharing, you know. Like I feel that like there's a doorman in my apartment that I say that he's my community, you know. Like he's just not like a guy there in the building. No, he's part of my community, because I say every day to him, hello, goodbye, we have a little chat. Like that is community, you know. And now that the I'm in Mexico right now, I got the chance to go back to my country, but for example, the other day I needed a picture of my graduate diploma that was hung on my apartment, and I had to text him. I was like, hey, can you go to my apartment and take a screenshot of my diploma and send it to my email? And he was like, sure. And that was because I have like the confidence and of just having him in the community, of saying hi and goodbye every day, and just like making this interaction, you know. So I think community is just like this interaction and this relationship, that the day that you do need help, people are gonna be there to help you. And my story is super stupid, you know, but that is, if I had never seen this guy as like community or anything, and just like, oh, he works in the building, whatever, it would be very different, because now there's like this relationship, and he helped me out giving me the picture of my diploma. And I told him, like, grab all the toilet paper that I have under my sink, my friend, thank you so much, you know. And he was like, sure. And that is community, you know. The same way that a kid gave me a drawing that he did. He was like, oh, this drawing, I don't want to give it to my mom, I want to give it to you. And for me, it was like, that felt more amazing than that when I receive an email saying that I was accepted to like an open call, you know. It's like a different kind of success. It's a different kind of thing. It just touches you different buttons. Yes, of course, it feels amazing when a collector buys your work, when you have a solo show, when you get invited to a show. That's a different part of success. That's like a more success on paper, like a more CV success. There's all these other successes that have to do more with like what brightens your soul, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think so.